Hello, Shaul.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's 12:01.
I was on before. Okay. I was on before 12:01.
You were waiting.
Yeah.
I could only let you in when it was officially afternoon, though.
Oh, really?
12 o'clock is still.
Okay.
I don't know.
Morning.
I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. It's a tough one.
Well, the truth is, halachically, it's very tough. It's very tough.
Halachically, it's what?
Halachically, it's still morning.
Why?
Because if you split the hours, the way halachic clock works as follows. You need a little bit of math. But hello, Abigail. Hello, and Reggie's with us. Hello, Reggie.
Hello, Rabbi. How are you today, sir?
Good, Baruch Hashem. Well, I went from rabbi to a sir in one sentence. That was an up. Now a sir is like an honorary thing. I'm gaining titles here. It's incredible.
Well, why not?
Just kidding around. That was, anyways. So recently I had someone calling me sir quite often. Like, sir, I've never been called a sir yet. That's nice. All right. Anyways, but I'm telling Shaul about the halachic clock, because we just want to make sure that when we say good afternoon, good morning, we want to know that we're halachically in line. It's very important. So I actually have a wonderful app. But basically, halachic time goes like this. If you have sunrise till sunset, okay, and you split that into 12 parts, then each part is a halachic hour. So halachically, hours don't go by 60 minutes. Halachically, hours go by the day divided into 12. That's why today, you ready for this? A halachic hour will be 74 minutes today. In the summer, the days are long. Now, when is this applicable? Well, you're learning with Rabbi Fine. I don't know if you're touching on these subjects in the. Oh, actually, you're not there. You're not. Well, it's discussed in the Talmud around what you're learning now in Brachas, but a little bit later.
Well, we did do some, but not the exact timing. We did.
Right. So you're saying Shema.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all part of this halachic hour. So, for example, halachically till today, one needs to say Shema, the morning Shema, by what's called the end of the time for saying Shema. Now, what time is that? So the Talmud will say it's 3 hours into the day, because the time you have to say the Shema in the morning has to be when you're waking up, or in the time that people wake up, not as you're waking up, but in the right uvkumecha. We say it in the Shema prayer, Mishachbecha uvkumecha, when you're getting up. So it's in the waking up time. So the Talmud wants to know, what's the longest time period a person could wake up in? How long does it take the longest procrastinator to get out of? No, not that kind of thing. But basically, we all jump out of bed at 6 a.m., of course. But if you have kings, okay, the king doesn't have so many worries.
That's what we were in.
You're talking about, right? So you have malachim, you have the princes, the sons of kings, which don't have to do anything. And every wish of theirs, and they can wake up and know that their coffee will be ready on the spur of a moment. So they have nothing to worry about. Right? Any other worries anybody has besides for having their coffee? All right, just making sure. So that's the idea. So basically, kings get up 3 hours into the day. So that's the idea. That Kumecha can span that time. Hello, Davida. Welcome back to Quebec.
So this morning.
So this morning, good question. So let's make it practical. This morning, what's 3 hours into the day? So you say, when did the day start? But so the day started today, sunrise, according to my app. But this you can also get on the weather app, my weather app as well, has the sunrise today. So let's see if it matches actually. Sunrise today, I missed it. Sunrise is tomorrow will be 5:27 a.m. So probably just about that today. And on my halachic app, sunrise today was 5:28. Well, okay. So pretty close. So 5:20, let's say it's 5:28 a.m. So now you got to do 5:28 and you got to do 3 parts later is going to be the end of Shema. What's 3 parts? Well, I gave it away that the parts are going to be 74 minutes each. Why? Because if sunrise today is at 5:28 and sundown today is, ready for this, at 8:14 p.m. So now you got to take from 5:28 till 8:14 and split that into 12 slices.
Okay.
Anybody ready for that? Anyone do that?
Well, you give us the answer
See,
before.
Reggie's sweating already. Reggie's got his calculator going. No, okay, here. Lots of numbers going on. All right. Hello, Diane and Eugenia. Welcome, welcome.
Hello, hello.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Good to
Hello,
have you back.
everybody.
Hello.
All righty. We're just waking everybody up with some numbers here. But
So it would be
anyway, so
3
I gave
times
away the answer, Shaw. What was the answer?
74 minutes.
74 minutes and 36 seconds, or 36 halachic seconds. Anyways, so the idea is 74 and a half minutes. Let's put it that way. So what's 74 times 3?
234.
234. Okay, so now you have to do 234 minutes after 5:28.
So it's basically 3.5 hours. 3 hours and 45 minutes. What do we say? 234, 60 and 234 is 3 and like 55 minutes. So 5:28, 26, sometime around 9:26. Hello?
He's frozen in time. So
Yeah, we just, this math just froze him, right?
he's time traveling.
All let's talk about time travel.
His computer died.
Yeah.
He said he'll be back. He's coming back.
No.
Just kind of funny what we were discussing, and then it goes. Well, that's complicated, though. So that means I never say Shema Yisrael at the right time.
Well, that's so 3.7. So that's going to be what, 4 hours 10 minutes after
Yeah.
5:28 then?
Yeah. So 8:28, 9. Let's say 9:28, approximately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, I made it this morning. I did it this morning. When I go to synagogue, I'm okay. It's when I don't go to synagogue, because I have to take my wife to work or to the bus, and that's like 5:30 in the morning, 5:45.
Oh wow.
So I'm like dead. And sometimes I'll come home and just crash. What wakes me up is my daughter works out of the house, so that wakes me up.
Ah.
And she has to work till she starts work at 9:30, so we're okay. So that's why I get
That's why the timing. Yeah.
right. 9:30 is fine for me. The question is, what happens if you don't say Shema on time? Like, in other words, I think you can say the first three paragraphs, even if you don't say it on time.
Not the. Yeah. That's
Something
a good question.
like
I
that.
don't know about.
Yeah, that's something like that. That's a wrap. We were discussing this in Talmud, and all of a sudden we got off the track in the Talmud class.
Oh, with Rabbi Fine?
Yeah. Are you? Yeah. Good. Now we're talking about what? That's all this stuff. Weird stuff. Where do you live in Ohio?
I live outside of Columbus.
Oh, okay.
40 minutes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of nowhere, or is it a big city? Or
Yeah. Oh no, out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. mean, I know Columbus,
Nice.
Ohio State. Anyone who follows
Yeah.
sports knows Columbus, Ohio State.
All righty.
He's back.
I'm back. Sorry about that. All right.
Reggie said we froze you in time.
That's it. You froze me above. I was counted out.
No. You traversed to another dimension. Now you're back.
No, I landed back. You're right. I came with the answers. Came back with the answers. I had to go search for them somewhere else. All right. Are you ready?
You're funny.
That was a little tough. I said 234 plus 518. That was it. 528.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
blasted
yeah.
off somewhere out there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. My laptop died. Usually I have it plugged in, and today was the every rule has an exception. Today was the exception. So we got the taste of that. All right, we're back. Okay. So basically, hello to Rabbi Yaakov Yehuda.
Hi.
Liba's with us. All right.
Hi.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's get back to business. Just finish this up, and then let's jump into the parsha. I think we're still live on Facebook. Sorry to all those that were on Facebook, but we're back. Okay, so basically, if you add up 528 plus 2, whatever we said, you're going to get to 9:07 a.m.
Yeah.
Means that so Yisma Kriya Shema today, the end time to say Shema, if you want to do it properly, halachically, is at 9:07 a.m.
And what happens if you don't do it within that time?
Then your laptop will die.
Yeah.
Uh,
Can you still?
apparently, I'm giving away my sins. Oh, I'm confessing here.
Yeah.
All right. You can still do it. Yes, you can still do it. It's discussed as, meaning it's the title is like this. There's saying it bismano, kemitzvasa, and then they're saying it shalei bismano, which means saying it in its proper time is the best way to do the mitzvah. Saying it after that, then you still have the mitzvah, but it's not considered the mitzvah of saying Shema in its time. It's considered the mitzvah of learning Torah, which the Shema is part of the Torah. So it's always good to say it anyways, because it's from the Torah, and it's always good to study Torah or to say verses of Torah. But if you can, put it on your coffee mug. Say the Shema. That way you'll be a good reminder. Okay, so that's that. Anyway, so that's the halachic hour. So basically, this all came about because Shaul was still worried about saying good morning or good afternoon. And I told him, no worries, halachically, it's still morning time because based off the entire calculation that we did today, Chatzot, which is when halachically the afternoon begins, is only at 12:51 p.m. today. So we still could say good morning, even if you're not in Calgary. All right. So let's jump into today's Chumash. We're going to run into something called the Degalim, the flags. And let's share the screen. Got some exciting stuff here, some pictures. So we'll share what we can, and all right. There we go. So let's take a look at this picture before we go anywhere else. We just lost somebody. All right, let's do this. David, Liba, did you have your hand raised?
Yes, I'm sorry, Rabbi. Just a quick question.
No problem.
Are women are not time bound to say the Shema? Is that correct?
Correct.
So there's no restrictions as to when we can say it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Put on my tefillin if you want to say it.
Yeah, no, it's still a good idea to say it, but yeah, you don't have the restrictions. Yeah. Yeah, good point. Okay, so let's do this. Here is some colorful pictures. So let's take a look. This is, can everyone see? Everyone sees it? I don't see you, so.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have here in the middle, we're going to take a look at a few things here. I'll try to explain to the best of my ability what's going on in this picture, but this is pretty much what happens in today's Chumash. In the middle, you have the Mishkan, you have the tabernacle, as you can see with the coverings, that we discussed at great length in the previous Parsha, all the way back in the book of Exodus, many, many months ago. with the partition. Okay, so that's the Mishkan. That's in the center. Okay, so the idea is we're going to find out the positioning of the Jewish people when they were camping in the desert. That's what we want to discuss today. We counted the Jewish people, or we counted some of the Jewish people yesterday. That was yesterday's portion. And today we're going to find out how they lived in the desert, how they camped, and according to some, how they traveled as well. So let's get a good picture of that. So around the tabernacle, around the Mishkan, is going to be Moshe, Aaron and his sons, Aaron and Aaron's sons, and probably Moshe's sons as well. And we have Merari, Gershon, and Kahas. These are the three Levi families. They and their role are discussed at the end of this week's parsha and the beginning of next week's parsha. So basically, what we have here is the three families of Levi were split based off Levi, the actual Levi, like the original Levi, son of Jacob. The original Levi had three sons, Merari, Gershon, and Kahas. Okay, Kahas may sound familiar. It's the Chabad printing press, but it's a name of a person. It still is a name used, not so common. Anybody know here a guy named Kahat? I knew of one. Anyways, but the Merari, you don't hear so much. Gershon, you hear pretty often. So here you have the three sons of Levi, and their children are all going to forever, or at least in tabernacle times, going to be grouped by that. So it's not so much a tribe, but it's even family within the tribe. Now, to what role or what difference did it make? Who was your father or grandfather in the sense of the children, the three sons of Levi? It was what you carried. Because let's remember, the Levites, different than Aaron and his sons, Aaron was the first Cohen. Let's remember that although Aaron was from the tribe of Levi, just like his brother Moshe, they both were great-grandsons of Levi. They were actually from the family of Kehat. Kehat had a son named Amram, and Amram had Moshe and Aaron. Okay, so Aaron becomes the first Kohen by the authority, by Hashem's, anointing him, and henceforward all his descendants are the Kohanim. So the Kohanim is the Kohenites. The Kohen is the branch off, the breakaway from the Levite family. So the Kohanim had the jobs in the Mishkan. They had a full-time job. They were working in the tabernacle, in the temple, and they had to bring the sacrifices, and they had to light the menorah and bring the incense, and that was a lot of work. So that was the Kohens. What were the Levites doing? What were the Leviim doing? So the Leviim were given for all eternity, pretty much. What our true job is to be singing in the tabernacle / temple, and also to be the guards of the temple / tabernacle. I'm just going to say tabernacle, but it means also for the temple. So that's the idea, is that they were the guards. They had different posts around it to guard it, not so much to protect it, because the temple doesn't need protection, but rather as a sign of honor. It's an honorable thing when there's the guard, the change of the guard, or like they have in London, not necessarily for protection, more for entertainment. No, just to bring honor. So that's the idea of bringing honor to Hashem's home. So you see that here they camped right around the tabernacle. Now, what you see in the pictures here is what they did in carrying the tabernacle through the desert. Okay, so these were roles that they only had in the desert, because once they got to Israel, the tabernacle became much more stationary, although it did have 3 or 4 different places that it was over a span of 400 years. in Israel before the first temple was built by Solomon, which only happened about 400 years after the Jewish people came into Israel with Joshua. So during the 40 years in the desert, there was the tabernacle that was constantly being put up and taken down, put up and taken down. Every time they camped somewhere, they had to put it up. Every time they left and they continued to travel, they was taken down and it was carried in parts. Who carried the parts of the tabernacle? So here you have the pictures. The family of Merari, they had the parts of the walls, the beams, the ropes. That's you see over here. Gershon, you see, has the more the cloth parts, some other ropes. I think Gershon was more. Here, there's actually a great listing here. Oh, you know what? If we want to see it in its full glory, let's pull up our favorite Chumash. It's got a great chart. So we could see it, and let's go all the way down. Again, it's going to be in all the way at the end of the parsha, page 19. Here it is. Here you go. So here you have Gershon, clan of Gershon. Gershon had Livni and Shimi were Gershon's sons. Kahat had 4 sons. Amram was the father of Moshe and Aaron. Yitzhar, Hebron, Uziel. By the way, Korach, of the famed antagonist, I guess, or the one that fought against Moshe and Aaron, will have his parsha in a few weeks. He was the son of Yitzhar. Merari, the third family, had 2 sons, Machli and Mushi. So this is their count. This is the situation that they camped around, west, south, and north, where Moshe and Aaron were on the east. Here's the prince of their clan, and this is what they carried. Okay, so we talked about Kahat. Sorry, not Kahat. We talked about Merari first. We kind of went bottom up. So Merari on the bottom, they were carrying the planks, bars, pillars, sockets, utensils of the tabernacle, pillars, sockets, stakes, and ropes of the courtyard. Those were all parts that we talked about at length a parsha ago. I'm just gonna put everyone on mute, and of course, everyone has the ability to unmute yourself at any given time. Please do so, and welcome. Wow, we have a lot of people that joined us here. Aliyah, welcome back, and Irma, welcome back, and Karen, welcome back, and Richard, hello, and Sarah, and I think everyone else I've spoken to. All right, fantastic. Liba, do you still have a question? If you're more than welcome to unmute.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot to put my hand down. Sorry.
No problem. I feel like a teacher in the classroom. Hands up, hands down. This is incredible. Just kidding. All right, not a problem. All right. So here you go. But please feel free. I don't see, because I'm sharing the screen in the particular way that it is on my laptop, I'm not seeing anybody. I'm just seeing the screen in front of me. What I'm sharing with, I hope I'm sharing this with you. Everyone see this chart that I'm looking at? Gershon, Kahat, Merari.
Yes.
Yes, perfect. So if you have a question, thank you. Just jump in. Just jump into the conversation. Please unmute yourself and feel free. That's probably the best way to go about it. Okay, let's hello everybody. Let's continue here. So we saw what Merari carried. The family of Gershon. I'm gonna now skip to the top. They carried the tapestry covers, the cover of goatskin, the cover of ram and tachash skins. These were all the covers, as we discussed many weeks ago, the roofing basically of the tabernacle, where all these different material covers, the entrance screen, the curtains, the screens, ropes of these curtains. So you see that Gershon had more of the coverings and screens, more of the material, versus Merari, who had more of the hardcore, they were more in Home Depot. Merari is like the Home Depot type, and Gershon was more the I don't know which store would do the tapestries. I guess the other one. All right, and I guess I could probably relate more with the Home Depot stuff, and maybe okay. Anyways, then we have Kahat. Kahat is the middle family. Kahat is the you can call of the Levi families the one that gets the most kind of the most holy work. Let's remember, Kahat is the grandfather of Moshe and Aaron, and they are the ones that will carry throughout the Mishkan, the Ark of the Testimony, the Shobra table, the candelabrum, the menorah, the inner and outer altars, the utensils, and the dividing screen. So they do have one screen, but ultimately they're the ones that are responsible to carry the holy stuff. In fact, as we'll see more next week, the way to carry all these things were mostly by wagon, and it was just that these families of Levites were responsible to load it up and load it off and put it together and take it down. Whereas the family of Kahat, when they were carrying the holy stuff here, they had to do it by hand. They were not allowed to put it on a wagon, as we'll see more in detail later. So they had the holy works. It's actually interesting to note, once we're on this page, before we go back to the picture, that in discussing these seven generations, the seven generations from which that I think actually here on the class, you learned it with Rabbi Fine at the very beginning, at our very, very beginning of the Maya Yeshiva experience. We were preparing for the Yud Shvat, the day that the Rebbe became Rebbe. You were learning the Basi Legani. And there, one of the main topics is this concept that the divine presence found itself at home right in this world at the very beginning of creation, and through seven negative acts, starting with the eating of the tree of knowledge, the divine presence became more and more concealed. Ultimately, till it was concealed all the way in the seventh heaven. And then Abraham came around, and Abraham's claim to fame is that he started bringing the Shekhinah, divine presence, back down to this earth. And it was a 7-generation work. It was it took 7 to bring down from the 7th heaven to the 6th heaven to the 5th heaven to the 4th heaven to the 3rd to the 2nd to the 1st, and then down to the planet Earth. And that was actually what we celebrate Shavuos. Shavuos is we're celebrating not so much the Torah being given to us, but rather what the Torah being given to us represents. The fact that the Torah came down to planet Earth in such a real way was really a manifestation. It was symbolic, or is representing the fact that the divine presence felt itself at home again in this earth, which is the purpose of creation. Unfortunately, since then it's kind of felt uncomfortable again, and now it's our job to bring it back down. So that's our role, is bringing heaven down to earth. That's the idea. So in that listing of the 7, you have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Okay, got 3 so far. This is the easy math. I hope this math won't kick me off the screen. All right, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob's son Levi is given the 4th role in bringing the Shekhinah down. Levi's son Kahat, the middle son, is given the 5th role. Kahat's son Amram is given the 6th role, and then Moshe, is Amram's son, is given the 7th role. He's the one that brought the Torah to us, right, on Mount Sinai, and then ultimately he was the one that led the building of the tabernacle, which was pretty much bringing God home to this world. So that's just an important thing to remember. Okay, so that's that. And by the way, side note, we are all part of the 7th generation, Dor HaShavi'i, and that's our role, to bring God down home. So we're not working on our own merits. We're working on the merits of the previous generations, thousands of years of hard work that was put into place. And it's our job just to schlep it down that little bit, which is just needed because it's already so close to home. Okay, so let's go back to, now that we have this, the Levi family, let's go back to the picture here. So now that we can understand a little bit better what's going on with the Kahas, Gershon, Merari, Moshe and Aaron and his sons. They're all around the actual Mishkan. Then if we zoom out a little bit more, we have the 12, the other tribes. Okay, so let's go through it. The numbers that you see are the numbers that we already listed yesterday, and interestingly enough, they're repeated today in today's portion, which we'll try to pull up if we have some time. That's the numbers of men between 20 and 60. That's the numbers. Then you have the names of the tribes. Then you have colors. What's the colors about? Well, each tribe had a color. Okay. The first time we see the colors is by the Choshen Mishpat, by the breastplate that the high priest wore, the Kohen Gadol wore on his chest. There was 12 stones. Each stone was for a different tribe, and each tribe had their own type of stone, which basically meant each tribe had its own color. Okay, these colors were then used in the making of the flags of the banners for each tribe. Okay, and then that's that. And then there's the pictures. So the pictures, you see here a lion, you see here a deer, you see here the snake. It's done. Okay, I have to look up again what this is. Looks like a cute kid. I have to remember what that is, what that's representing. But the idea is that each tribe also had something that they represented, an animal kind of that represented them, or some symbol, not just an animal, but something that symbolized them. We saw that in the blessings that Jacob gave to their children. Moshe will also repeat those to some extent. And these were pictures that were also on their flags. Okay. When we talk about the way they were camped, so there was basically kind of on the east side, we see here is Yehuda, Yisachar, and Zevulun. The reason why they were put on the east side, according to the basic understanding, the commentaries explain, is because the east is the front. We see Moshe and Aaron, they were at the front. East is always considered the front. And being that they had the most people, as we see, 74,000 makes up the most people of any tribe of able-bodied men so they were kind of there as protecting. So also, in the sense of an army, put the best man at the front, the strongest platoon, or the most at the front. That's at the front over here. Then you have Dan, Asher, Naphtali. You have them in the west. Okay, so that's the direction. So what you see here is the animals is because, let's pull up something interesting here in our pictures. When you talk about the camping in the desert, you're going to see here something very interesting. And that is here. Here's another picture, not too colorful, but here you see, again, there we go. You have, this is representing the clouds of glory that we talk about, that engulfed the Jews in the desert. That was only for the tribes, and it left out the livestock. That was the picture of the animals we saw over there. The animals were left outside of the cloud of glory together with the mixed multitudes, which also traveled in the back, right? If Judah is in the front, in the east, so it's the west is the back, and they where the mixed multitudes were behind the cloud. They were not in the clouds. Okay, so that's that. One very important thing and a beautiful point to remember is that the Kabbalist, the Medrash already talks about the fact that in the camping, in this format, we'll see from a Rashi. Well, you know what? Let's pull up the Rashi first, and then we'll take it a little bit of a deeper dive. Something quite fascinating. Let's take a look at today's Chumash. No, today is still Tuesday, and we're in the third reading of Parshas Bamidbar. So let's take a look at the beginning and see how Rashi puts it, and then we'll take a deeper dive in the last few minutes we have. The Almighty speaks to Moshe and to Aaron. We talk about the degel being the banner or the flag, with their signs. So each flag had its sign, and we'll talk about that in a moment. According to their father's house, we're talking about tribal affiliation, which goes by the father. Yachanu b'nei Yisrael, that's how they should camp. Mineged saviv la'ohel moed yachanu, they should be camping surrounding the Mishkan, surrounding the tabernacle. Says Rashi, ba'oisais. Okay, so first of all, what is the sign that was the ois? Ot means a sign. What was the sign on the flag? Each flag had its own color. Each one's color was different than the next, and the color was actually the same color as was on the stone on the Choshen Mishpat, as we talked about before. Davar Acher, Rashi says something else to explore or to know as well. And that is that the osot, the signs over here, is not necessarily referring to the flag color, although that is a truth, but actually is referring to something that happened many years ago. That there was a sign given by the patriarch himself as to how the tribes should encamp. When did that happen? When Jacob was on his deathbed in Egypt, and he lined out to his sons, to his 12 sons, how exactly they should carry his coffin. Because as he had made Joseph promise that his coffin would not be buried in Egypt, but rather would be taken up to Israel. That's exactly what happens in the end of Genesis in Pashat Vayechi, where we have the story of how his children carried his coffin up to Israel, and that's how he is buried till today in Arat HaMachpelah in Hebron. The way it's worded there indicates the fact that Jacob had already instructed them as to how exactly they should be carrying his coffin, with 3 tribes on each, 3 of his sons on each side. I don't know exactly what that tells you about the dimensions of the coffin, but if you could imagine, so there's 3 sons on each side, and that's exactly how they were going to camp in the desert. It's actually interesting. There is a debate, Talmudic debate, as to how they traveled. Just bring it up here. If they traveled, Rashi brings it down actually a little bit later. But if they traveled the same way, it's quite fascinating. How did they travel in the desert? So how they camped, we got the picture. This is how they camped. Camped when they stopped. This is how they camped, like this. The question, or like this. Question is, how did they travel? Okay, did they travel in the same formation? So according to one opinion, yes. According to another opinion, they actually shifted into a long line, like a long beam. That way, actually, Dan was in the back, and the tabernacle was in between 2, like in the middle. So there was 2 groups before the tabernacle and 2 groups behind the tabernacle. Group meaning 3 tribes. So let's say Judah, Issachar, Zebulun went first, and then after, I think it was Reuven, Shimon, and Gad, and then went the tabernacle, and then went Benjamin, Menashe, and Ephraim, then Naphtali, Asher, and Dan. I think if I remember correctly, we'll get more of that later. But that's another opinion as to how exactly it worked. Was it for one long line, or was it the way they camped? That's the way they traveled as well. They just picked up from there. So going back to our Chumash, so that's that. So just diving a little deeper as to understanding, the fact is that the division of the tribes is a crucial way of understanding how the Almighty wants us to work as individuals or as tribes, because ultimately we can't run away from it. We are all very tribal. I belong to this synagogue and you belong to that synagogue. I'm affiliated with this kippah and you're affiliated with that kippah, or whatever. I pray from this siddur and you pray from that siddur. So the Jewish people, for the better or for the worse, we're very, very tribal. And this is not something new. It's not necessarily something. It's not something which started off in the exiles, but we see it's all the way back in the very beginning. There was 12 sons of Jacob. Each one had his position around the coffin, and that filtered down all the way to the way the Almighty commanded them to be camping in the desert, each one with their own color, with their own picture, with their own place, with their own role. And yet that's exactly the way it's supposed to be. And the fascinating thing is that the Medrash relates how when the heavens opened at Mount Sinai, when they received the Torah, they got a vision of the angels. We know they saw different visions. They saw the chariot of Ezekiel. It's one of the visions they saw there. But one of the things they saw was the formation of the angels, which was in camps surrounding the throne of glory. Kisei HaKavod, surrounded with 3 camps here, 3 camps there, 3 camps. So they saw that and they loved it. They loved the idea. They wanted to have a taste of that. So they kind of put their, they put the petition forward. But that's how they camped, was because of the way they saw how the angels camped around the glory of the Almighty. So is it wrong to be tribal? The angels do it. How do the angels do it, though? How do the angels do it? If we learn from the angels how to be tribes, then we can be tribes in unity, because the angels each one has their own unique role in the way that they serve God. We know Michael is the angel of mercy, of kindness. Gabriel is the one of severity. When they came to destroy the city of the city of Sodom, and they had to go save Lot, and they had to heal Abraham, right? So there's 3 angels. Each angel had his own role. And yet we say, Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Al kol Yisrael bimromen. What does that mean? Says the Alter Rebbe in Tanya. Oseh shalom bimromav. He who makes peace amongst his miromav, amongst the higher, upper, the angels, basically. Because the angels, they recognize, to whatever recognition they have, what's way beyond our recognition. They recognize that, despite the fact that they work, or they express their their relationship with God in their own unique role, when the fact is that they are working for the same God. So each one has his or her way of doing it, but there's no competition. There's no hard feelings. There's no hatred, because we're all working for the same God. He's the one that gave us this unique role. So how could that develop into hatred or to animosity when we're working for the same boss? So says shalom b'romav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. If we can have that recognition and see the fact that I pray from this siddur and I have this color flag and it's my color kippah or whatever, it's all different various ways of serving the same God, Hashem Echad. Then we can emulate the tribes in the desert who emulated the angels on high, who saw their tribalism not as a means, or at least they shouldn't have seen it. In their better moments, they didn't see it as a means to compete or break off into 12 different fractions of Judaism, which each one, praying at one synagogue and not showing up to the other one, right? That's what they say about the Jew that ends up in the desert. After 15 years, he's got 3 synagogues, one that he goes to, one that he doesn't go to, one he won't even look at, right? So that's the idea. But the idea is that we are meant to be different. We're meant to be different. That's why we were created differently. Each person has their own unique role, and we should be celebrating our differences, because if we keep on trying to just pretend that we're not different, we're just pretending, because it's not true, and no one gets anything accomplished because we're all just trying to be the same. But if we all celebrate our differences, and I'm unique in this way, you're unique in that way, then each one adds to the tabernacle their own donation, and we develop one home for God, each one in their own way. So that's it's more of a recognition than that's needed. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me here today. Yashar koyach, and good to have all of you back. Lots of you back, and hope to see you
Thank
tomorrow.
you very much.
Thank
Very
you,
well.
Mandy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. Thank you.
Thank you
well.
so much, Rabbi Mendy.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Rabbi Mendy.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
I don't know, Billy Joe.
Rabbi Fine is needed to unmute. I think you have that ability now.
Oh, I thought I did that already. Thank you.
All right, no problem.
Thank you. Okay. Welcome, one and all. As we continue, my yeshiva. My yeshiva is your yeshiva. Your yeshiva is my yeshiva. We continue in some Talmudic discussion. Yesterday we went into about the fear that Yaakov had of perhaps he did not have enough merits. He wasn't deserving of more blessings. And King David, we spoke about the fear of sin in King David's life and where that led him. So we're going to continue. Okay, let us continue. Do you see it in front of you?
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
All right. Excuse me.
Baruch Hashem.
Thank you. Okay. So this is where we're continuing where we left off. We are taught. Does anybody know how you say that in the language of the Talmud? Could be very surprised. Nobody? Tanya. Tanya means we were taught. And it's an Aramaic term, meaning that we were taught in a brisa. The word brisa is an Aramaic term that means the outside. Why is it outside? Because it's not on the inside. It's not on the inner track. What's on the inner track? The Mishnah. The Mishnah, when it uses the term in the Talmud, it says tanan, which is Hebrew word that we are taught. But it's in Hebrew, not in Aramaic. Aramaic is a translation. Hebrew is the original, God's language, as it were. The Mishnah has greater standing. A brisa is on the periphery, so to speak, relative to the Mishnah. It's still Torah teaching, so it's not the periphery of Jewish teachings, but it's on the periphery relative to the Mishnah. And excuse me, hence being on the periphery, so to speak, of the Mishnah, it cannot contradict the Mishnah. That's only if there's only one opinion of a Mishnah. If there's two opinions, so it can side with one of the opinions. The Brisa, right, which uses the word Tanya, we are taught, is giving us greater understanding of the teachings of the Mishnah. Now, it's not the Gemara yet. The Gemara is a later generation. They're called Amoraim, as a verse to the people of the Mishnah and the Brisa. They're called Tanoim. So it's like, the earlier sages versus the later day sages. I mean, relative, we're talking about, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi wrote down the Mishnah. Rabbi Chia wrote down the Brisas. So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi ends the epoch, the time period of the Mishnaic teachers. Some of the Mishnaic teachers are like Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai from Lag BaOmer, right? That was from the Mishnah. Then Rabbi Chia was like a generation or so later, not that much later, brought more elucidation to the teachings of the Mishnah. So we are taught, that's how it begins, that the sages made a fence to their words to protect their ordinances. Now we're going back to our original discussion about the Shema. Remember, that's how we started off. We went on a digression. We went on a great digression, right? And now we're coming back to the topic. So the sages made a fence around their words to protect their ordinances. In other words, there's rabbinic law, and even a rabbinic law, they made a fence, lest a person coming from the field in the evening. So, excuse me, what's a person's coming from the field in the evening? And he would say, I'll go home. I'll eat a little, drink a little, and sleep a while. And then I'll read the Shema and pray. Pray meaning the Shemona Esrei, the Amidah, the evening service. That's what a person, would say. So, in the meantime, this is the Brisa talking, right? In the meantime, he will fall asleep and sleep through the whole night without having read the Shema or prayed. But in order to prevent this, they say, a man coming from the field in the evening shall enter the synagogue. Don't go home right away. Go into the synagogue. Remember, they only worked until it was, it was getting dark. So they'll go into the synagogue. And if he's accustomed to read scripture, in other words, he's capable of learning Torah, scripture, Chumash, so he's going to do that. Let him do so. Or if he's able to study traditional law, meaning the Mishnah, right? In other words, more advanced learning. So let him do that. After this, he should read the Shema, pray, and then he can go eat his meal and recite the after meal benediction. Now, he who transgresses the words of the wise deserves a penalty of death. Death here means premature passing from this world. Doesn't mean death by a court of law, right? It doesn't mean in a physical sense death, right? It means by a premature passing from this world. That's what it's the reference is over here. So that's the Brisa. That is the teachings. Okay. So why does the Brisa now, the Gemara asks, use the expression here that he transgresses the words of the wise is worthy of the penalty of death, and not use it in any other place? In other words, this Brisa is saying a very strong statement that this person who transgresses the words of the wise, meaning the sages, right? In other words, fell asleep, went home, didn't go to synagogue, went home, and ate, drank, and be merry, and fell asleep, and then didn't fulfill a mitzvah because slept through saying the Shema, as opposed to going to synagogue, praying, and then going home to eat. So it's a very stringent, statement that is being made over here. By the way, in addition, for the fact that beyond the fact that they say the Shema and the Amidah, they also get to study something. So they have an additional benefit. So so the Talmud is asking, we don't see this statement of being punishable by deserving the death penalty, again, by the hands of heaven. This is not, coming from a court of law over here. We don't see that terminology used elsewhere. Why is it being used over here? Now, let's understand something that, that term is, 1 second. Okay, you know what? Let's see the answer to the Gemara. Well, that won't do. So the answer is the Talmud now gives the answer. If you wish, you may say. So now there's going to give two answers over here. Because of the force of sleep puts him beyond his own control, and if he's not strongly warned against it, he may transgress the command even though he really desires to fulfill it. So the sages are in the Brisa making this strong statement is because, you know, especially back in the day, they worked very hard. They worked in the field, an agrarian, manner of livelihood, hard work. If you're not going to reinforce in a very strong manner the obligation of saying the Shema, which is a biblical obligation, then many people are going to be, overcome by sleep, and they're not going to fulfill what they need to fulfill in the mitzvah, right? So the reason why it's being stated here, although the idea of transgressing, which we'll talk about in a moment, why this is so, rabbinic law, right, is punishable by this premature passing. That's all rabbinic law. The question the Talmud is asking, why are you pointing it out explicitly here, even though that is a truism by all rabbinic law, right? All rabbinic law is an obligation, and there is a concept of premature passing if a person doesn't fulfill the rabbinic law. The question the Talmud is asking, why are you pointing it out over here? So the first answer is because of sleep. Sleep is something that's going to overcome the person. Therefore, we want to emphasize it here specifically. Now, remember, what's the biblical law and what's the rabbinic law over here? Anybody? What's the rabbinic law? What's the biblical law? What's the biblical law?
Something that's specified in the Torah.
Well, in this instance, what is that? Saying the Shema. Saying the Shema is a biblical law, correct? So what's the rabbinic law? We learned this in the very beginning of the first Mishnah. L'chaim, everybody, l'chaim. What's the the rabbinic law then? They put a fence
These are
around
the times.
Go ahead, Reggie.
These are the times in which they're said. On the
Elaborate.
watches that you were talking.
No, midnight.
Okay.
Only right. Biblical law, you could say the Shema till the morning, till dawn. Rabbinic law, they said, no, say only till midnight, because what's going to happen, you're going to get engaged in other things, doing other things, and you're going to forget about it, and then you might fall asleep and forget it altogether, right? So again, the biblical law is to say the Shema. The rabbinic law is that, do before midnight, right? That's what we learned previously. So now the question is, in the brisa that we just brought down, what are we saying? What is the brisa saying? That you're liable for the death penalty, premature death. Let's call it just premature death, right? Therefore, our sages they suggest to you what you should do. Go and pray first, then eat. Because if you'll pray first, you'll make sure you fulfill your obligation. Now, why is that brings to premature death? Why is it stated over here? Even though if you do not listen to the sages, that's what happens. And we're going to have a discussion on that in a moment, why that is so. Why should that be? So why is it being reinforced over here? because of the nature of sleep, the nature of eating that leads you to falling asleep, right? What happens? It happens to me after dinner. I feel heavier. During the day, I don't feel heavy like that because it's maybe a lighter meal or something. But when I'm eating after dinner, I feel weighted. And the idea of sleep is not very distant from me. I'm sure we all experience that. L'chaim, l'chaim. It's not that distant, right? So what do we got over here? We've got the warning of our sages. Hey, be careful. Be careful. You're going to sit and eat and drink and then only pray. You may not end up saying the Shema and doing your prayers, right? So that's the first point. Now, let's go to the second point that the sages say. And if you please, what does it mean, if you please? Meaning I'm giving you a second option on how to understand our brisa, why it's emphasizing the fact that a person who doesn't listen to the rabbinic ordinance will have premature death, or could. It doesn't mean they will, but so if you please, you may say, because it is the intention of the brisa to reverse the opinion of those who say that the evening service is only optional, it tells us, therefore, by warning us that it's obligatory. So later on in the Talmud, on page 27, we're only page 4. We're long distance runners over here. We're on a long distance run and we're going very slow. We're on page 4, Daf Daled. Second side of it, I must tell you, the folio. Okay, but we're only on Daf Daled. But on Daf Chav Zayin, on page 27, we're going to have a debate there about Mariv, about the evening prayer. Is the evening prayer a obligation, or is it not an obligation? Is it something that you have a choice in? And there will be a debate. Now, the obligation is only rabbinic, right? It's not biblical. When we're talking about the Amida, the Shemona Esrei, the 18 benedictions that we say in the Amida, right? The silent prayer. So there'll be a debate there between two opinions. One will say that this is an obligation, rabbinic obligation. Another will say it's not a rabbinic obligation. The brisa is taking the side of the one that says it's an obligation. That's why the brisa is saying premature death. Because what's going to happen? Not only you're not going to say the Shema, but you also won't say the Amida. You won't say your silent prayer, which is, according to the brisa's opinion of the Mishnah, goes according to the opinion that says that it's an obligation. How is it expressing it? By saying that you'll have premature death. Because what's going to happen? You're not going to end up saying your Amida. You're not going to say the Shema, which is biblical obligation, but to put the emphasis, right? The question's on the emphasis. Why is it being stated here? Is to let us know, hey, it's an obligation, this Amida, the Shemona Esrei, the silent prayer, right, where you're asking God for things. It's an obligation, rabbinic, it's still an obligation. Is that clear? Yeah, any questions? Chaim. Yeah, we're good, David,
Rabbi Chaim?
Reba, go for it. There's
Okay.
some
I just have a quick
feedback.
question. How does this also apply to women who are not time bound by the Shema?
Excellent question. So they don't get premature death. That's one way. So they're not obligated, right, in the mitzvah, which means they're not obligated in the mitzvah in a time-bound manner, but there is still a value in a woman saying the Shema. She doesn't need to do it part of Mariv. She can do it part of her prayers before going to sleep, because it's, it doesn't, she doesn't have the obligation to do it, and therefore it's, sufficient that you do a part of your Shema before you go to sleep, and that's you have that merit. Is that clear? Yep. Okay, wonderful. Okay, now let's go to the question. I mean, the pink elephant in the room. What's going on over here? Why by rabbinic law would there be this concept of premature death for not fulfilling the rabbinic law? How do we understand that? So it seems to be kind of extreme. It seems to be quite extreme. So the Rabbeinu Yoina explains as follows. And let me give you, before Rabbeinu Yoina, let me give you some background from what we've learned in Tanya and the like, to give us a little more appreciation. And that is, ultimately the mitzvahs that we're doing is about a relationship that we have with God, right? So David is asking, what happens if someone is not observant, doesn't say the Shema at all, right? So would they also get premature death? The truth is, I'll get there in a moment. Thank you, David. Good question. I'll get there in a moment when we explaining this. So ultimately, it's about a relationship with God, and in the relationship with God, there's different dimensions to that relationship. There's that which is explicitly demanded by God, that this is what he wants in the relationship. Rabbinic law is not explicitly demanded by God that this is what he wants in the relationship, but it's the sages who understand in a nuanced way what God really wants, kind of between the lines. Like in a human relationship, right? There is those things that your spouse says, this I want in the relationship, like, take out the garbage, or, we all know certain things that are demanded, right, explicitly. But then there is the person, if the relationship's important, so then the rabbinic law, right, is expressing that. So likewise in a human relationship, it's the things that are left unsaid, but between the lines you read and you understand that your spouse wants this too, even though they didn't demand it. So biblical law is what God demands. Rabbinic law is not what God demands, kind of between the lines. That the sages who are, just like in human relations, there are people who get it, they get the body language, they get the nuanced, expression of the person, and they get it that, oh, yeah, I get it. You'd like a cup of water. You didn't ask for it, but, you'd like this or you'd like that. That's already a much more developed, right? So that's what rabbinic law comes, and it's the sages who get it because they're much more intimate in the relationship with God, so they kind of understand between the lines what God really is looking for. So that's just the context of appreciating and understanding. Now, a simple person, right? A simple person who is not so nuanced, so they're not gonna look at it that way. How are they gonna look at it? look, what I'm demanded, I'm going to do. But between the lines and the things that I'm not commanded, and it's the rabbis coming and saying their authority, not so keen on that. Not so keen on that. And therefore, what happens? You're not going to give such importance to it. And when you do something wrong, if it's biblical, oh my gosh, you feel like, wow, I didn't say the Shema. I didn't, person didn't put on their tefillin. Like, that's biblical. I didn't make a blessing. That's rabbinic. Okay, so I didn't make a blessing. Not so remorseful, because after all, it's only rabbis who came and said that we have to make blessings on food. God didn't say that. God only said you have to do birkat hamazon, right? Achalta v'tzvatu verachta, to eat and be satiated and then bless God. That's the only instance when it comes to food that we actually have to make a blessing to God. All other blessings are rabbinic in nature. You would think, what do you mean, a blessing? You think like that's like, fundamental. Well, not biblically fundamental. It's fundamental to Jewish life that you make a blessing. Imagine, you're making Kiddush Friday night. You drink your wine without making a blessing over it, and you're celebrating. You're going to make a blessing, not B'rei Pri Hagafen, but you're going to make a blessing over the day because that's a biblical command to, to remember Zachor es Yom HaShabbos, remember Shabbos. So you're going to make, Yom HaShishi, but a B'rei Pri Hagafen you don't make because I don't follow biblical law, rabbinic law. Biblical law, yeah, okay, I have to remember Shabbos. So I'm remembering Shabbos, I'm making this blessing, right? So what do we have over here? Is that a person will dedicate themselves to something that they feel that, that's much more stringent and that's much more, that's really what God wants. I didn't take out the garbage. I'm really going to get over my head. I didn't bring a cup of water because it was intimated that maybe I should bring a cup of water to my spouse for dinner. No, I'm not going to get such a punishment, right? So not so remorseful, not such a big deal, right? That's when a person only doesn't look at the relationship, right? All they're looking for is, the reward and punishment, so to speak. So you got to make a distinction. This one's very rewarding. This one is, great punishment that comes with it. This one, in any case, it's only the rabbis. Like, what's the big deal? This is how a person may look at it. And hence comes Torah and tells us, making a big mistake. In a relationship, it's not just about the big demands and the explicit demands that are made. But if you're really in a relationship, then it's all those nuanced things that we need to be open to and ready to hear. Now, we're kind of blind and we're kind of deaf, so we don't hear it. Right? We need our Rebbe to tell us. We need the sages to tell us. We need, Rabbi Akiva. We need, these holy people that they know, and therefore they come and say, that's rabbinic. That's rabbinic, right? And since human nature is not seeing things in that light, therefore what will we do? We'll make light of those things because they're on the lighter side in the sense that it's only rabbinic in nature and not biblical. Therefore comes a greater stringency that when it comes to rabbinic law, you should know, be careful. Premature death. If you don't take it seriously, if you don't appreciate that there's something divine here. It's not just the rabbis coming and telling you something and, just to, here in Quebec, here in Quebec, we have like what 8 million people in Quebec, and there's only like 700 cases of COVID a day now, or even less than that. It's really gone down. Right? It's really gone down. Yet the powers that be are still have a stranglehold. It's like there's still a curfew. There's still a lot of businesses aren't open. You can't go to a restaurant, and so many things. So, not that, and the only reason I bring this up is for a metaphor, not because I want to give any but these are like the powers that be, sort of they're not the rabbis, right? They're not the sages, but they're I'm bringing it in the secular terms. So what's going on? Are they privy to a little deeper things, and therefore they had the nuance of what the right thing is? I don't know about that. I question that. I think it's more they've got power and they have control, and it's difficult to give up power. It's difficult to give control over the people by nature. You'll rationalize it, that but I think it's this way. So you know what? That's the powers of a government. And we recognize that. But many people think that that's the rabbis too. That's what they think. Oh, the rabbis have control. Oh, they're men. So they put women as second-class citizens. They don't have to say the Shema. I mean, literally, that's biblical. So, but, the rabbis, it's a men's club. So, of course, that's exactly the challenge, and that's exactly the difficulty, and that's what our sages are saying over here. Recognize that rabbinic law is sages, that God Almighty empowered them, that they have the duty to enact laws when, today they can't enact laws because we don't have a Sanhedrin, right? We don't have a cohesive body that can do that has any jurisdiction over world Jewry. So, they can't enact rabbinic law, but rabbis can, sort of in their community or for those, that they can do things, and they have the right, the obligation to do it, because they understand through Torah teachings the nuanced application of the law and how it should be. Now, today there's going to be a lot of difference of opinion, and therefore you're going to have a lot of different communities doing different things in different ways, and so on and so forth. Fine. The point is, listen to your, authority in your community or whoever your particular, rabbinic authority is. We need to, somebody learned in Pirkei Avos right earlier, but here it's bringing out this idea. It's so important that if you don't, you can obligate upon yourself premature death. Now, getting to the question of Davida. So first of all, before, is that clear? Okay. Now, getting to Davida's question about, you have a lot of people that, don't fulfill biblical law, let alone rabbinic law. What does that mean? So we're going to learn in the third part of Tanya. And I'm just give you a general principle of it. Of this idea of premature death was in a time when heaven and earth were much more in sync. Spiritual and the material world were much more in sync. Today, it's not that way. So that concept is not really the actualization of premature death is not really something that is what's the word I'm looking for? So significant and meaningful in the sense, meaningful, and I'll say that in the sense that, this is what's going to happen to somebody. You go, and therefore, you missed so many shmas because you didn't listen to the rabbis. You missed so much, Shemona Esrei, you didn't listen to the rabbi. No, don't worry. I mean, don't worry. Of course, you got to worry, but not because of that. because we live in a different world today of the divine presence of Hashem, something that's tied in with what we're learning in Tanya actually now, but it'll be more specifically addressed in the third part of Tanya in Geras HaTshuva, that the linkage between heaven and earth is not so clear, or not so, not so linked up. And therefore, this idea of premature death is not something, that is, I don't say a reality. I mean, there's still a consequence of it, but it's not the same in the same manner. So then what difference does it make? So what difference does it make? Getting back to the point that we made earlier, if Judaism is all about reward and punishment, so, okay, I have to worry now because the punishment is not really so, so much there. That's if that's what Judaism is about to you. If it's about a relationship with God, so then the concept is still there. In other words, the reason why there is the premature death concept is only to bring to light how important it is, the rabbinic law. And how important it is that we follow it. And not just make light of it, not just think that it's only, it's the rabbis and, and they have an agenda. After all, they're human and, biblical law that I got to follow. The rabbinic law. No, so it should bring out the harshness of it, of how important it is. Even though it may not be something, again, that is, in fact, going to happen because someone missed, saying the Shema and the Shema Esrei. Is that clear? Any questions on that? Powerful idea. And this then touches upon the idea, if you recall, when we did in the first Mishnah of Pirkei Avos, so we spoke about the Messiah, the passing down of the Torah from Sinai to Moshe, Moshe to Joshua to Yeshua, and so on and so forth. And remember, then I asked or explained, if you were to sum up Judaism in one word, what would it be? So this is just my idea. This is, I didn't even see this written anywhere. I don't think there's any sages talking that way in any case. But I'm doing that. What would be the one word? So I said Messiah, tradition. What's tradition? Tradition means it's something that's handed down from generation to generation, from parents to children, from teacher to student, and from rabbi, sage, to his community. Right? And that's the essence of Judaism. What are you passing down? Whatever you received. Right? I ask, the rabbi that I go to, when I ask him, often he'll tell me, I got from Rabbi Hendel, who was the Chabad rabbi here in Montreal, I received from him, to do it this way. Why do we do what we do? Because we received it. So if you're just a child, you're receiving it from your parents. When you grow up a little more, then you have, you have your teachers. Then you grow up even more. Then you have your rabbinic authority. Then you have your mentor, right? And you're still receiving. You're still receiving, right? I mean, you're giving also, but you're still receiving. So that's the whole of Judaism. So if we, biblical law, that I am like, that I'm very careful. Rabbinic law, then you're not a real recipient. You're not really receiving. Because receiving means you're receiving from someone. So I received direct from God. Well, no, you don't. Moshe did. It says, Moshe kibul Torah, he said, Moshe received from Sinai. You didn't receive from Sinai. He did, not you. So who did you get from? Well, you didn't even get from Joshua or from the Zkanim. or from Nevi'im, or from Anshe Knesset Gedela. So who'd you get from? Well, from your teacher, your Rebbe, your your rabbi, right? That's who you're getting from. In other words, a path. That person got a path that was given all the way back ultimately to Sinai. And so that ties in over here how important that concept is over here. That without that, we are kind of, I don't know what the word is, kind of at odds with, fundamentals of Judaism. And that all came out here, from a discussion about just a simple words that were used in the Brisa, saying that what? That if you, offense, the Brisa started off that the rabbis made a fence around the Torah. Why do they make a fence? Well, the Brisa continues and says that, you should go and before you go home and eat, drink, and be merry, and then fall asleep and forget your biblical obligation of the Shema, rabbinic obligation of the Amidah. Well, according to this Brisa, takes it according to that, the opinion in the Mishnah later on, and you're going to fall asleep. So put a fence around. Don't go home. First, go to shul and pray. Right? Now, by the way, does that mean that that's the only way you can only go to shul? And, it means that before you sit down for your big meal and it's time to daven the evening service, so, engage in the evening service. Halacha does tell you, though, that let's say you are with a group of people or with someone, and that person can remind you to pray. So then you're not transgressing the rabbi's decree. But if you just, what's the big deal? I'm going to enjoy life and then I'll go do the mitzvah. Then you're transgressing with what the rabbis are saying. Now, if you set aside someone and say, please remind me, because maybe, the family's sitting down together and now, it's family time. And that's important, right? So what are you going to do? So, what I've done sometimes is I will remove myself for 5 minutes and daven, right? 5-10 minutes, whatever it is. If I can't go to shul, I'm davening at home. Sometimes I can't do it with a minyan. I can't always do that. Or sometimes I might even eat, but I set aside someone, remind me that I need to pray. So that's part of, we just brought down a brisa over here. Halacha, we didn't. Final adjudication of Jewish law did not come from this teachings today of a brisa, right? That will then be filtered through the commentators of the Gemara, and then it will come to the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, as Yosef Cairo wrote, and then the Ramah, Ramoshe Isserlis, who is the Ashkenazic opinion, Yosef Cairo, when they argue between the two of them in halacha. So we go, the Ashkenazim go to Moshe Isserlis, the Ramah, and Sephardim go according to Yosef Cairo. But let's say there is no argument, or even whatever, but we go according to what the law says there. And the truth is, we don't even adjudicate according to that now, because we go according to the Alter Rebbe. Chabad goes according to the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, what he says, because now he's taking from, the Shulchan Aruch was written in the early 16th century. The Alter Rebbe wrote the Shulchan Aruch in the 18th century. So there's other things that came into play, other teachings and taking. And in any case, remember, it's a tradition. So who are you taking from? Your teacher, your rabbi, your mentor, who took from, right? So when I go to a rabbi that I go to, actually, some of you might even know Rabbi Banon here in Montreal, who, his teacher was Rabbi Hendel, and going back, and it becomes then a very dynamic and living tradition that is carried forward. Is that clear? Any questions, any comments? I expected to learn some more Talmud today, but I got carried away. But next week we will continue.
Rabbi Fine, I just had a quick question.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I love today's class. I was just wondering if when we say the Shema, I was told to elongate echad because it elongates life. Is that related to today, what we discussed?
No, not at all. I mean, it's related to the mitzvah of saying Shema properly. When you say the word echad, you have to be careful. You could say easily acher, which means another God. The difference between echad and acher is the same letter. Daled has a little, part that extends to the right side over this, like that, and that's a daled. That's a resh. Look at the difference. Very little. The difference between being one God and another God is very small difference, right? In the letter, in the letter itself. This is a resh. This is a daled. The difference between, so therefore we are extra careful when we say Hashem Echad, that we're emphasize the daled, to make sure that we are expressing the oneness of God and not another God accidentally or inadvertently. That's what that is about. And at the same time, Daled refers to the four directions because it's the numeric value of fourth letter. And so we think about, God being the oneness of God in, everywhere. So, that's just how you fulfill that mitzvah properly. And it doesn't particularly tie in with, the point that we're making over here, fence around the law, but rabbinic law and so on. But that's how that mitzvah is, properly fulfilled. Is that clear? Good? Wonderful.
Yes, thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, so next week we will continue. We will continue with the brisa that we brought down and further take it apart, understanding the brisa in another argument about Shema and the Amidah and how that's supposed to be done, different opinions, as we will see, and the source of that, and we'll then get into understanding, the Shema in its biblical reference, in the Shema of, the obligation to say it twice a day and how we learn that, and so on and so forth. More to come. All right, folks. Tomorrow we'll have Pirkei Avos ethics. Okay. Any questions, any comments, any thoughts? I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did.
It was great. Thank you, Rabbi Fine.
Pleasure.
Yes, it was a good class.
Thank you.
Thank you
Love to
very
hear
much, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi
Thank you,
Fine.
Rabbi.
Great class.
Well, we'll see you
You
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Bless you all.
Thank you.
Bye, gesund. Have a great day.